The klaxon blared a death knell through the U.S. Perseverance's aging corridors. Captain Maya Chen gripped the worn command chair, her knuckles white beneath the synthetic skin of her prosthetic hand, a reminder of past battles that had cost her more than just military favor. Around her, the bridge crew moved with the practiced efficiency of those who knew they were already dead in the water. "Status report," Chen barked, her voice a razor's edge of controlled fury. Lieutenant Amir Khan, the ship's primary tactical officer, didn't even attempt to sugarcoat the situation. "We're running on less than 40% operational capacity. Half our quantum stabilizers are offline. The portside particle shields are down to 12% integrity, and we've got more jury-rigged systems than original equipment." The Perseverance was humanity's reject, a cobbled-together corvette that had been scheduled for immediate decommissioning. Its hull was a patchwork of mismatched metal plates, emergency repairs, and experimental modifications that would have made any standard military engineer weep. But right now, it was the only thing standing between the Artemis colony and total annihilation. Pirate vessels swarmed like angry hornets against the colony's outer defense perimeter. These weren't the disorganized raiders of centuries past, but a sophisticated attack force equipped with stolen military-grade weaponry. The colony's primary defense grid had already fallen, and the nearest rapid response fleet was hours away. "Incoming transmission," called out Ensign Maria Rodriguez from the communication station. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, routing emergency channels and filtering through layers of encrypted panic. The colony's governor appeared on the main view screen, a holographic projection that flickered with barely contained terror. "Any ships in range? This is Governor Elena Santos. We are under heavy attack. Estimated time to total colony collapse, 47 minutes. Chen's eyes narrowed. Every rational military protocol screamed at her to maintain distance, to wait for proper reinforcements. But rational had never been her strong suit. "Helm, plot an intercept course," she commanded. "Maximum non-standard approach vector." Lieutenant Khan looked up, disbelief etched across his features. "Captain, with our current systems, that's suicide. We're not equipped to." "Did I ask for your assessment of our chances?" Chen interrupted, a dangerous smile playing at the corner of her mouth. "Plot the course." The ship's experimental quantum drive hummed to life, a sound more like a dying animal than sophisticated technology. Dr. Rafael Santos, the ship's chief engineer, appeared on the bridge, his environmental suit covered in soot and emergency patch compounds. "I got some good news and some absolutely terrifying news," Santos announced. "The good news is I've managed to recalibrate our particle cannons to work at about 70% efficiency. The bad news is that doing so might cause a cascading quantum feedback loop that could potentially turn our entire ship inside out." Chen didn't miss a beat. "So a typical Tuesday for us then." The Perseverance dropped out of standard approach, using a combination of quantum displacement and pure mathematical audacity that would make most navigation computers commit digital suicide. They approached the pirate fleet from an angle that shouldn't have been physically possible, weaving between energy weapon barrages with a grace that defied both logic and several fundamental laws of physics. "Weapons hot," Khan reported, a note of excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "Targeting systems are, well, they're doing something. I'm not entirely sure what, but something." The first pirate vessel exploded before its sensors could even register the Perseverance's approach. The second followed milliseconds later, its hull simply unraveling in ways that defied conventional understanding of structural integrity. Governor Santos' transmission crackled back to life. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself." Chen keyed the communication channel. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the U.S. Perseverance. We are here to remind some people why you don't mess with humanity." As the last pirate vessel disintegrated, the Perseverance's systems began to overheat, warning lights flooding every console. They had won, but at what cost? Little did they know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change everything. The court-martial room felt like a tomb. Sterile white walls reflected the harsh lighting, casting sharp shadows across the faces of the military tribunal. Captain Maya Chen stood at attention, her posture rigid but her eyes burning with a defiance that made the senior officers shift uncomfortably. "Captain Chen," Admiral Roland Hartman began, his voice a glacial monotone. "You violated no less than 17 standard military protocols during the Artemis colony defense. Your unauthorized engagement, experimental combat tactics, and complete disregard for standard operating procedures should result in immediate dishonorable discharge." Chen said nothing. She knew the real trial wasn't happening in this room. Dr. Rafael Santos sat in the observation gallery, his fingers tapping an increasingly complex rhythm on a small quantum decoder he'd cobbled together from spare parts. The device had been pulling apart the encrypted signal found in the pirate wreckage, and what it was revealing was far more dangerous than any military hearing. "Sir," Santos interrupted, bursting through the courtroom doors, "you need to see this." The holographic display he activated made everyone freeze. Quantum encryption patterns danced like living mathematics, revealing fragments of a message that seemed to defy conventional understanding. Star charts overlaid with impossible geometric structures. Communication protocols that didn't just break current technological limitations, they obliterated them. "This was embedded in the wreckage from the pirate attack," Santos explained, his excitement barely contained. "It's not just a message, it's a key to something much larger." Admiral Hartman's skepticism was palpable. "This looks like nonsense, Doctor." Chen knew better. Her eyes tracked the complex patterns, seeing the underlying structure that most would miss. "It's a quantum navigation sequence," she said softly. "Something designed to be decoded, but only by a very specific type of intelligence." As if in response to her words, the quantum decoder began to emit a low, resonant hum. The holographic display flickered, and for a brief moment, something else was visible. A fleeting image of a massive structure that seemed to exist between dimensions. Unbeknownst to the humans, alien surveillance systems were already tracking the decryption attempt. The Galactic Scientific Consortium, a collection of the most advanced civilizations in known space, had been searching for this particular quantum sequence for millennia. And now, a single human ship had stumbled upon it. The first quantum pulse arrived moments later. A signal so complex that it caused the base's computer systems to momentarily glitch. Screens flickered. Communication arrays sparked. And in the observation gallery, Santos' quantum decoder began to transform, its components rearranging themselves with an intelligence that seemed almost alive. "They're coming," Chen said, her voice a mixture of warning and anticipation. Within hours, the Perseverance was recommissioned, not as a punishment detail, but as humanity's most critical research vessel. The military's initial plan to scrap the ship had been replaced by a desperate need to understand the quantum signal. Santos worked feverishly, his modifications turning the ship's systems into something that was part spacecraft, part quantum computer, and part something entirely new. The ship's AI, an experimental system that blended machine learning with human-like adaptability, began to interact with the decoded signal in ways no one could predict. "The signal is a navigation protocol," Santos explained to Chen during a late-night strategy session. "But it's more than that. It's a test. A challenge, maybe. Something designed to identify civilizations capable of true innovation." Outside the ship's reinforced hull, space began to change. Quantum distortions rippled across the viewport, creating impossible geometries that defied standard physics. Something was responding to their decryption attempts, and something else was coming. Something that had been waiting a very long time for a civilization capable of solving its quantum puzzle. The Perseverance hummed with potential energy. A condemned ship, a disgraced crew. Humanity's most unlikely hope. The quantum gambit had begun. The asteroid field looked like a graveyard of celestial titans. Massive rock formations tumbled through the void, each chunk of stone large enough to obliterate the Perseverance with a single collision. Most ships would navigate this region with extreme caution, plotting carefully calculated trajectories. Captain Maya Chen did nothing of the sort. "Tactical. Give me full sensor overlay," she commanded, her fingers dancing across the ship's modified control interface. Lieutenant Amir Khan's hands blurred over his station, quantum processors pushing far beyond their intended capabilities. 3 alien hunter vessels pursued them, sleek predators of technology that made human engineering look like children's toys. The Zarkak's pursuit fleet didn't just want to destroy the Perseverance. They wanted to erase any evidence of its existence. "They're closing," Khan reported. "Our quantum signature from the decoded transmission is like a beacon. We're broadcasting our location better than any standard communication array." Dr. Rafael Santos burst onto the bridge, his environmental suit still smoking from recent engineering repairs. "I've got an idea," he announced, which was never a phrase that inspired confidence among the crew. The first alien weapon discharge sliced through the space where the Perseverance had been milliseconds before. Chen's piloting defied every standard navigation protocol. She didn't plot a course. She improvised, treating the asteroid field like a living, breathing combat zone. Rerouting all non-essential power to quantum displacement, Santos shouted. The ship's experimental systems began to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Standard physics became more of a suggestion than a rule. The first pursuing vessel miscalculated its approach. A massive asteroid, easily the size of a small moon, suddenly occupied the exact space the alien ship was traversing. The resulting explosion was silent but spectacular, a bloom of superheated debris that momentarily illuminated the darkness. "One down," Chen muttered. The remaining 2 alien hunters adjusted their tactics. They began using coordinated quantum pulse weapons, creating localized space-time distortions designed to force the Perseverance into a predictable escape vector. "They're hurting us," Khan realized. "Like prey." Chen's laugh was sharp and dangerous. "We're about to change that narrative." Santos had been working furiously at a secondary console. "I've been analyzing their quantum weapon signatures. They're using a cascading frequency modulation that assumes a standard quantum response. But we're anything but standard." The ship's systems began to pulse with a rhythm that was part mathematics, part pure human improvisation. The quantum displacement drives kicked in, but not in any way the alien vessels could predict. The Perseverance didn't just dodge. It became impossible to target. One moment it would be in one quadrant of the asteroid field. The next, it would simultaneously exist in 3 different locations, its quantum signature becoming a mathematical impossibility that confounded the alien targeting systems. The second hunter vessel found itself trapped between 2 massive rotating asteroids. Its quantum pulse weapons reflected back upon itself, creating a localized implosion that tore the ship apart from the inside. "2 down," Chen said, her voice cold and calculating. The final pursuer, a massive vessel that looked more like a living machine than a constructed ship, realized it was no longer the hunter. "Prepare quantum disruption sequence," Chen ordered. Santos' modifications to the ship's systems were beyond experimental. They were borderline insane. The Perseverance began to resonate at a frequency that shouldn't have been possible, creating quantum interference patterns that began to destabilize the alien vessel's fundamental structural integrity. Space itself seemed to ripple. The final hunter simply unraveled, not destroyed, not exploded, simply came apart at the quantum level, its complex systems unable to maintain coherence against the Perseverance's impossible attack. Silence filled the bridge. "Well," Santos said, breaking the tension, "that's one way to clear our pursuit." Chen allowed herself the smallest of smiles. They had survived. They had won. And they were just getting started. The coordinates were impossible. Mathematical coordinates that shouldn't exist in any known spatial reference frame. They represented something more than a simple location in space. Dr. Rafael Santos stared at the quantum-decoded data, his fingers tracing holographic lines that seemed to shift and breathe with a life of their own. "It's not just a location," he muttered. "It's a mathematical invitation." The Galactic Scientific Consortium's communication channels erupted with panic. Massive translation arrays and quantum communication networks lit up simultaneously, their advanced systems struggling to process the implications of the Perseverance's discovery. Captain Maya Chen stood at the ship's primary interface, her prosthetic hand interfacing directly with the experimental quantum navigation system. The ship itself seemed to be holding its breath, systems humming with an anticipation that bordered on sentience. "We're being watched," Lieutenant Amir Khan reported, his tactical displays showing multiple layers of observation from alien civilizations. "Every major galactic power has locked onto our quantum signature. They're waiting to see what we'll do." The gateway materialized before them like a mathematical hallucination. It wasn't a physical structure in any traditional sense, more a complex intersection of quantum probabilities, a doorway that existed between dimensions, between possibilities. "Quantum stability at 62%, Santos called out. "Any standard approach would tear our molecular structure apart." Chen's smile was razor-sharp. "Good thing we're not standard." The alien observation vessels, massive constructs of technology so advanced they seemed almost organic, watched in collective disbelief. Entire civilizations had spent millennia attempting to unlock this quantum gateway, using computational power that could calculate entire stellar life cycles in microseconds. The Perseverance approached using a navigation sequence that wasn't so much calculated as improvised. Chen didn't plot a course. She interpreted it, her human intuition dancing with the ship's experimental AI in a way no purely logical system could comprehend. Quantum mathematics became poetry. Spatial limitations became suggestions. The gateway began to respond. Complex geometric patterns erupted around the ship, mathematical structures that folded and unfolded in dimensions humans weren't supposed to perceive. The Perseverance's systems began to transform, quantum processors reconfiguring themselves in real time, adapting to challenges that would have obliterated any other vessel. "We're being tested," Santos realized, watching the data streams. "This isn't just a transportation network, it's a selection process." Alien observation vessels began to transmit increasingly desperate communication attempts. Their quantum translators couldn't parse what was happening. A human ship, considered a technological joke by most advanced civilizations, was doing the impossible. The gateway's quantum field intensified. Mathematical challenges appeared that would have taken standard computational systems centuries to even begin solving. The Perseverance's response was immediate and utterly unpredictable. Where a standard system would calculate, the ship would improvise. Where a logical approach would fail, human creativity would break through. Chen's voice was calm, almost conversational. "Raphael, reroute auxiliary power through the quantum displacement matrix. Amir, prepare for non-standard dimensional transition." "That's not even a real procedure," Khan protested. "It is now," Chen responded. The gateway pulsed. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. And the Perseverance entered the unknown. Consciousness became a suggestion. Reality fractured into impossible geometries. The Perseverance existed simultaneously in states that defied comprehensive understanding. Part ship, part quantum probability, part something entirely undefined. Captain Maya Chen found herself experiencing multiple realities at once. In one moment, she stood on the bridge. In another, she was scattered across quantum wavelengths. Her prosthetic hand transformed, becoming both mechanical and liquid, matter and energy intertwining in ways that would shatter every known scientific paradigm. "Status report," she called out, unsure if the words were spoken, thought, or transmitted through quantum resonance. Dr. Rafael Santos materialized, and that was the only word that partially described his current state of existence. His body was a complex mathematical equation, consciousness bleeding through dimensional membranes. Holographic representations of his neural pathways danced around him, computational processes becoming visible, tangible things. "We're not just in an unknown region of space," Santos responded, his voice a harmonic that was simultaneously sound and pure information. We're inside a computational matrix that tests the very fundamental nature of adaptive intelligence. Alien observation vessels couldn't even comprehend what they were witnessing. Their most advanced sensors registered the Perseverance's transition as a mathematical anomaly, a series of probabilistic events that shouldn't resolve into any coherent form of existence. Lieutenant Amir Khan's tactical systems began to interact with the quantum realm in ways that redefined the concept of defense. Potential threat vectors became visible as complex, three-dimensional threat matrices. The ship could now perceive incoming dangers before they even manifested, navigating through probability streams like a living navigation system. The quantum realm was a crucible, a testing ground designed by an intelligence so advanced it treated entire civilizations like experimental subjects. Crew members discovered they could partially manipulate reality through sheer force of will and creative problem-solving. A damaged system could be repaired through pure conceptual understanding. A navigation challenge could be solved by thinking beyond linear computational approaches. We're being evaluated, Chen realized, her consciousness expanding beyond her physical form, not by our technology, by our capacity to adapt. Alien scientific vessels watched in horror and fascination. The Perseverance wasn't just surviving in an environment that should have instantly destroyed it. It was thriving. The ship's experimental systems, combined with human improvisational skills, created a form of intelligence that was fundamentally different from any known computational model. The quantum realm responded to their presence. Mathematical challenges appeared that would have taken standard computational systems millennia to even begin solving. The Perseverance's response was immediate, creative, and utterly unpredictable. Where a logical system would calculate, they would improvise. Where a standard approach would fail, human creativity would break through. Santo's quantum modifications turned the ship into something more than a vessel. It became a living computational system that could rewrite its own operational parameters in real time. The experimental AI learned and adapted faster than any known technological system, feeding off human creativity like an intellectual symbiote. We're not just exploring, Chen said, her voice resonating across quantum wavelengths. We're proving something fundamental about intelligence itself. The realm pulsed, responded, evaluated. The Perseverance continued its impossible journey, a testament to humanity's most fundamental strength, the ability to transform, to adapt, to survive beyond all logical expectations. The Galactic diplomatic nexus looked like a massive crystalline structure suspended in the void of space, a monument to technological sophistication that had stood for millennia. Hundreds of alien civilizations conducted their most delicate negotiations within its translucent halls, each species believing in the absolute supremacy of their technological and cultural achievements. They had no idea what was coming. The Perseverance emerged from the quantum realm like a mathematical nightmare. Its quantum signature was a discordant symphony that made the most advanced sensors spark and fail. Diplomatic communication arrays across the entire nexus went dark simultaneously, creating a moment of absolute silence. Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge, her presence radiating a calm that was more dangerous than any weapon. Dr. Rafael Santos worked furiously at the ship's modified quantum interface, his fingers moving in patterns that were part computation, part improvised art. "They're preparing to board us," Lieutenant Amir Khan reported, his tactical displays showing multiple approach vectors from the diplomatic vessels. Standard protocol suggests complete surrender and immediate data transfer. Chen's laugh was sharp enough to cut quantum fields. "We're going to do something else entirely." The Zarkak's diplomatic warship, a massive vessel that represented the pinnacle of technological achievement for multiple galactic civilizations, moved to intercept. Its quantum weapons could typically neutralize entire planetary defense systems in microseconds. Santos triggered the modification he'd been preparing since their quantum realm journey. "Quantum resonance protocol initiated," he announced. The Perseverance didn't just defend. It attacked by existing in ways that defied comprehension. Its experimental systems began to interact with the alien vessel's computational matrices, creating cascading interference patterns that rewrote their fundamental operational parameters. Quantum weapons that should have obliterated the human ship instead found themselves redirected, their complex targeting systems transforming into elaborate mathematical poetry. The Zarkak's warship's most advanced systems began to unravel, not through destruction, but through a complete reimagining of their operational logic. Diplomatic channels erupted in panic. The human vessel is conducting unauthorized quantum manipulation. A Zarkak's communication officer screamed into the void. It's rewriting our computational foundations. Chen watched dispassionately as the diplomatic vessels found themselves unable to maintain their technological superiority. Weapon systems became art installations. Navigation matrices transformed into complex philosophical debates. The most advanced technological civilization in known space was being systematically neutralized by pure human creativity. "We're not here to fight," Chen announced through an open quantum channel. "We're here to demonstrate something far more important." The quantum realm they had traversed was revealing itself to be more than a transportation network. It was a testing ground, a challenge designed to identify civilizations capable of true adaptive intelligence. And humanity was passing with flying colors. Diplomatic representatives from multiple alien civilizations watched in horror and fascination. The condemned human ship, a vessel they had written off as a technological joke, was revealing capabilities that challenged everything they understood about intelligence, technology, and potential. Santos completed his quantum manipulation. The diplomatic nexus found its most sophisticated systems transformed, rewritten by an approach to computation that was part mathematics, part pure human improvisation. "Message delivered," he said quietly. The Perseverance had just rewritten the rules of galactic diplomacy. And they were just getting started. The quantum archive materialized around the Perseverance like a living memory. Infinite layers of computational history stretched in every direction. Not just a database, but a living record of civilizational potential that had existed across multiple dimensions and timelines. Dr. Rafael Santos felt more than saw the layers of information. His consciousness expanded, interfacing directly with a network of knowledge that would have driven lesser minds into immediate fracture. Holographic representations of entire civilization life cycles danced around him, each a complex mathematical narrative of rise and fall. "It's a testing ground," he breathed, his understanding transforming with each passing microsecond. Not just a transportation network, a crucible designed to identify true adaptive intelligence. Captain Maya Chen stood at the core of this revelation, her prosthetic hand now a complex quantum interface that could parse information at speeds that would have been impossible mere moments before. The experimental ship's AI, a hybrid system that blended machine learning with human creative potential, began to decode the fundamental nature of the quantum archive. Alien observation systems watched in collective disbelief. The archive revealed civilizations that had failed the test. Technological giants that possessed computational power beyond human comprehension, yet lacked the fundamental creative spark that defined true intelligence. Entire species that could calculate stellar trajectories in microseconds, but couldn't understand the concept of improvisation. Humanity was different. The Perseverance didn't just navigate the quantum archive. It danced with it. Where standard computational systems would analyze, the ship would interpret. Where logical approaches would fail, human creativity would break through. Lieutenant Amir Khan's tactical systems transformed. He could now see potential threat vectors as complex, three-dimensional mathematical challenges. The ship's defensive capabilities became a form of pure problem-solving, adapting faster than any known technological system. "We're not just exploring," Chen realized, her consciousness expanding beyond physical limitations. "We're proving something fundamental about the nature of intelligence itself." The quantum archive responded to their presence. Complex mathematical challenges appeared that would have taken standard computational systems millennia to even begin solving. The Perseverance's response was immediate, creative, and utterly unpredictable. Layers of galactic history unfolded. Civilizations that had risen and fallen, each tested by this quantum crucible. Some had failed through rigid thinking, others through lack of adaptability. Humanity represented something entirely new, a species that could transform, adapt, and reimagine its own potential in real time. Santos discovered the true nature of the quantum network. It wasn't just a transportation system or an archival database. It was a selection mechanism, a test designed by an intelligence so advanced it treated entire civilizations as experimental subjects, searching for something beyond mere technological capability. Creative problem-solving, emotional resilience, the ability to transform weakness into strength. The Perseverance embodied these qualities. A condemned ship, a crew of misfits, humanity's most unlikely hope. "We're being evaluated," Chen said, her voice resonating across quantum wavelengths. "Not by our technology, by our capacity to adapt." The archive pulsed, responded, evaluated, and for the first time in millennia, it found a civilization worthy of its true potential. The return to human space was anything but triumphant. At first, massive military and scientific committees convened, their initial intention clearly to dismantle every piece of technology associated with the Perseverance's impossible journey. Classified reports buried deeper than most Black Ops missions could ever dream of, to briefings that felt more like interrogations. Captain Maya Chen stood before the United Earth Scientific Council, her stance defiant despite the weeks of intense questioning. Dr. Rafael Santos sat beside her, quantum data streams still dancing subtly around his enhanced neural interfaces. "You're telling us," Admiral Roland Hartmann said, his voice a mixture of skepticism and barely contained fear, that a condemned Corvette-class ship discovered a quantum network that entire civilizations have been searching for. Chen's smile was razor-sharp. Not discovered. Solved. The quantum data they'd brought back was more than information. It was a complete reimagining of humanity's place in the universe. Alien civilizations that had long considered humans a technological footnote now watched with a mixture of terror and respect. The Perseverance wasn't just a ship anymore. It had become a symbol. Proof that true intelligence wasn't about computational power or technological sophistication. It was about adaptability, creativity, the ability to transform limitations into strengths. Lieutenant Amir Khan presented the technical data, quantum analysis that would take generations to fully comprehend, technological insights that rewrote fundamental understanding of spatial manipulation, computational theory, and interstellar communication. The quantum network, Santos explained, is a testing ground, a crucible designed to identify civilizations capable of true adaptive intelligence. We didn't just pass the test. We redefined it. The military's initial plan to suppress the information collapsed under the weight of its own complexity. Too many alien civilizations had witnessed the Perseverance's journey. Too many quantum communication networks had recorded the ship's impossible achievements. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galactic catalog. The condemned ship that was supposed to be scrapped became the most important vessel in human history. Its battle-scarred hull told a story of impossible survival, of creativity trumping technological limitation, of a crew that turned certain destruction into unprecedented discovery. Chen knew the real victory wasn't technological. It was philosophical. They had proven that human potential wasn't defined by limitations, that creativity, adaptability, and sheer stubborn determination could overcome challenges that would crush more logical approaches. The Perseverance sat in a museum, not as a relic, but as a testament. A symbol that whispered to every human who saw it, "We are not limited by what others believe we can do. We are defined only by what we believe is possible." The little ship that could, had, and was just getting started.